It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome to He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's the Friday show, kids. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing good, and I started thinking. After
decades of doing this, I decided
today to start thinking. I was just looking at this week and just all the news from yesterday, and I went, okay, what's the top news story out there? Is it the continuation of the terrorists? Is it still the obsession with illegal immigrants from the Democrats? Is it the whole David Hogue thing now, or Boss Hogue, where a lot of Democrats were saying, you need to be neutral in these primaries or step down? Yeah. And it's like, okay, right. Where's the revolution going? I mean, what really was something that I looked at today that said, okay, that's being underreported because that's really huge. When it comes to what's going on inside the Democratic Party right now, because there was a question yesterday, is it a civil war? It's not a civil war, but the fighting's going on. It's close to a civil war. Well, whatever. You can throw whatever label you want on it, but there is a lot of infighting. And I saw this one. Alex Soros, the son of notorious billionaire, this is from Fox News, they wrote it, notorious. I don't know why, but I'm thinking, was it Boris? Was it Boris Badenov? Was he notorious, or was that Rocky the Flying Squirrel?
Oh, is that Boris's last name? Yeah.
And yes, Alex Soros. But they use the notorious. I remember the narrator, the notorious.
Yeah.
Alex Soros, son of the notorious billionaire George Soros, and chair of the Open Society Foundations, took aim at a left-wing climate group, saying, all they do is talk about Palestine.
Wow.
That caught my eye yesterday in an interview with New York Magazine, in which he detailed his plans to fund efforts to foil the Trump administration's agenda. Soros expressed his frustration with the leftist environmentalist group Sunrise Movement, which is heavily funded by Soros-backed organizations. What the hell did they do, by the way? Soros, who is Jewish, explained, we gave them the money, and now all they do is talk about Palestine. It's ridiculous.
Wow. George Soros just I don't know, took one tiny step toward MAGAville there. It was
well, I don't know if we can go that far.
Well, compared to George Soros of the past, we can. I mean, think about that.
Yes.
You can't today come out and say anything, even if you're Jewish, against the anti-Semites if you're on the left. You can't do that. I saw where Sharon Osbourne was going off on that Irish band.
Oh, yeah, we'll get
Coachella.
To that. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. People may not know, her father, Don Arden, that was his stage name, really. Levy was his last name, but he was Jewish. And she has said over the years that, in terms of faith, the only faith she really identifies with is the Jewish faith, because she doesn't, I'm guessing, I don't know if she's practicing these days. I really don't know. I don't know how she worships, but she came out and she was, kind of perturbed about that Irish band, the Irish rap band. We still can't wrap our heads around. But you can't do that.
Yes, Kneecap.
Yeah. You can't do that, even if you're Jewish, or of Jewish descent. You can't. Sorry. If you're on the left, the point is they're going to call you out. They're going to come after you. You can't go against the mob these days. It's much different than protests and the riots they were doing a few summers ago, it's gone much further than that in terms of the language and what they're doing, what they're calling for. It's really tough to comprehend someone's mentality. That is, and we said it since October 7th. From that point on, there were two sides, radicals on one side, everybody else on the other side. That's it. Full stop. And you and I were talking about something, I forget what it was yesterday, well, the radicals, but specifically, I forget what it was. And I was thinking to myself as we were talking about it, it's almost as if, it feels as if, again, anecdotally, that those radicals after October 7th feel more empowered. I mean, you can look at the evidence and make this case. They feel more empowered in their anti-Semitism and hate after October 7th because they've been very vocal about it. They've been very clear on it. They're very proud of it. And it's sickening.
Yeah, Sharon Osbourne called for their work visas to be canceled in the United States. And I will say this, one thing about free speech, one of the reasons that, we are pretty much absolute on free speech is exactly what happened there. I want to know. I want to know what people think. I want to know how radical some of these bands are. Now, if I paid, and I'm not going to pay to go see them, but if I paid, I might be upset if I held a different opinion. But without free speech, you don't learn how radical people are. People will go underground if you don't have free speech. They go underground, but if they believe they're being heard, they are less likely to go underground. But when you live in a free speech society, for example, they said our statements are aggressive. It's like the other band that now is pro-murder.
Yeah,
say we
circle
need,
jerks.
We need a army of Luigis.
Right.
I want them to tell the truth. The one thing right now about the Democratic Party that people, we started out by saying, whatever you want to call it, civil war. You had the head of the DNC come out and tell David Hogue, no, you don't do this. Step down. If you're not going to unite, if you're not going to be a Democrat, then get out. And, we talk about the Civil War, but I am happy that Democrats feel right now that they can't back off and pretend they're going to the middle. The American people need to know where they actually stand, how radical they are, how insane they are. And so
we said years ago, don't shut up and sing, when that whole shut up and sing thing for the Dixie Chicks.
Yeah. We said,
we were like,
nope.
Nope. Now, it's different when it applies to a visa. You don't get to come here on a visa and support our enemy. There's that.
Right. Oh, I understand that completely. I mean, that's
when they're on stage,
right.
When they're on stage in general or anywhere in the media, because they're not going to stop talking about it, and I don't want them to either. I don't want them to shut up. This is exactly it was bound to happen. There was no other way this was going to go when we demonstrated years ago because of the identity politics, and you've been talking since October 7th, that they basically just folded this in. This basically is under the entire sentiment of identity politics. This is who they have been for a long time. Now they're just flat out promoting their hate. And again, you're on one side or the other. You're either a radical or you're not. And if you support the radicals and keep voting for radicals, that makes you a radical, regardless of what you say.
By what AOC said, by what the punk, whatever they are, they formed in 79, so they're not a new band, Circle Jerks said, I want people to know that there are Democrats and there are people in the United States that are pro-capital murder. that they're premeditated capital murder, that they enable it and they will endorse it. It's very important for the American people to understand where the mindset is from a significant portion of other Americans. I don't want that hidden. Yes, it's horrendous, it's disgusting, but it's how they think. And the only thing that will wake up America, or has woken up a little bit America over the last couple of years, is the other side telling you exactly what they think. And the Democratic Party right now not wanting to change on anything.
No.
Not one issue as they sit back and go, let's contemplate. I mean, where is it? We're trying to figure out, is it our messaging? You suck on the issues. You've got people in your party that hate Jews. They hate women. They're pro-murder.
You got lawmakers in your party that are justifying the murder of Brian Thompson, the healthcare CEO.
I want Americans to know that. So when it comes to what, again, I'm not talking about the immigration portion of it as she did. I'm just stating that in general, the only way that American people will get mad is if they know what the other side thinks. And we clearly know what the other side thinks. I mean, it's pure insanity. It's chaos. It's murderous. It's evil. It's immoral across the board. And they're proudly promoting it. And I say, keep doing it.
Yep.
Keep proudly promoting.
Absolutely.
So what you actually believe, so Americans know how radical you are. Yeah, I sit there and, Jasmine Crockett, I go, oh, man. But no, I want her to continue talking. I want AOC to continue to talk. I don't want them to have any fear that somebody will attempt to shut them up. Mm-hmm. I want them to feel as free as possible so the American public can look at it and go, get these people out of political office. They're nutbags.
Yep. Sharon asked her husband what he thought. He said, they're all crazy.
I thought you were going to say they're on the crazy train or something like that.
They're on the crazy train. Sharon! The radicals feel so empowered now. This is how you get to where you are in the DNC with David Hogue and the rift that he's caused. And I thought to myself, for those that are kind of on the peripheral in the party or are looking to become an actual member of the party again, right? Maybe a Rahm Emanuel or somebody else. This is your party. David Hogue wants to be the future of the party. He's outlining, what's interesting is he's outlining why young people weren't connecting with the party. Because the party's not radical enough.
Yeah.
That's his take. That's what they're going with. And it is, we just need to get out these radical ideas, repeat them more and more and more. What they're saying is, what they mean by that is, the mob needs to be more intimidating.
Yeah.
The mob needs to be shutting people up and getting them into submission to where we can win elections again. That's what the mob needs. Sorry, Mr. Hogue. You're taking on the parents in part of this massive fight. You won't win that, ever.
And that's why I think it's important. I mean, I saw that story, I went, oh, okay, that's really interesting. Alex Soros out there blasting an environmental group saying, you're not talking about the environment anymore. You're talking about Palestine. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just like, if Alex Soros, for as crazy and insane as he is on so many of the issues, recognizes it, I thought it was interesting enough to bring it up on the air, because that was really the talk. Yeah, really the talk the last couple of days is how screwed up is the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
how screwed up are they?
Right.
Can they get it back together? What do they believe? The big story yesterday was Schumer's numbers.
Yeah,
they're horrible.
Yeah,
and why? Think about this. Schumer's, I know we did this yesterday and the day before that. Schumer's numbers are horrible because he agreed to pass a continuing resolution to fund the Biden agenda through October 1st.
Yeah. Wow.
Think about, that's is there anything false in that statement?
There's nothing.
There's nothing false.
It's
That's
not an
right.
abortion bill.
No. He didn't vote against abortion. He voted on a continuing resolution that funds the Biden agenda, the Biden-Harris agenda through October 1st.
That conservatives in the House weren't happy about.
Yes. It's like,
good luck, Schumer. Maybe you can work at In-N-Out Burger.
Look, the Republicans have challenges. Newt Gingrich pointed it out yesterday, saying, look, the economy's life and death for the midterms.
Yeah.
Something we've been saying from day one.
Yep.
And so Republicans have their challenge, but Democrats, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring. Begin your spring maintenance routine by inspecting your brake system and listen closely for any air leaks. During winter, water and moisture that builds up in your air brake system almost always freezes and turns to ice, which can damage your air valves, air dryers, and other essential components. Check and drain your air tanks to help keep water, contaminants, and corrosion at bay. Also, check your slack adjusters for proper stroke and lubrication. And check your brake lining or pads to ensure proper thickness.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We've got tons of audio cuts coming up. I was reading this op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. Reagan's 1982 tax hike is a cautionary tale for Trump. Talks about that when Reagan cut taxes, then later on you had the people around him say, okay, but you got to increase some other taxes over here. And Reagan, at the end of his term, had told the same advisor, said, biggest mistake that I made was doing that. And this is all part of the cautionary tale for Trump. But Trump has come out and said he does not want an increase in tax on the upper side, and so has Mike Johnson. But it's still out there. It's still being promoted. And it's funny because that came out that, this would never be promoted by the Republicans. Why is it? Because you've got a ton of people in the Republican Party that are no longer conservative. They're populist.
Right.
And so they think they can sell this. Trump right now, he said really 2 days ago, we're not going to do this. But this article came out yesterday, and it came out late yesterday. So I'm like, okay, they're still running. You've got the Speaker of the House saying it's a no-go. You got the President saying it's a no-go. Who's keeping this story going?
Right. Yeah.
Would be my question.
Yeah.
Why is it still out there? But the classic thing is Reagan said, I was told that for like, what was it, because this is just, it's something that I remember you and I have talked about before. And, okay, it goes into the actual, here it is. The fellas promised me I would get $3 of spending cuts for every dollar of taxes I agreed to. Instead, for every dollar in new taxes, we got $1.70 in new spending.
Yeah.
So, wow. Just a cautionary tale to Republicans from a former Reagan aide.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now, I don't think we've ever done this before, but we need to do this because it just irked both of us for a significant period of time over the last couple of years, and it involves Michelle Obama. And how many people called this show over the past couple of years saying, you guys don't understand, Michelle Obama's going to run. And we've said, no, she's not.
Not going to happen.
She hates politics. Now, if you've seen the debacle, number one of her podcast, and then the whole thing of, this thing has gone on for way too long. Why did Michelle Obama not show up for the funeral of Jimmy Carter? The whole inauguration thing and all of this. And she basically said, because I didn't want to. I don't want to get involved in any of this.
Right.
And so we had said a long time ago, and man, I'm telling you, for a couple of years, you guys don't understand. We did understand. She hates politics. She never wanted to go in it. She didn't like her husband being president.
Right.
And so, yes, so we told you so.
She didn't like her husband.
She didn't like her
being
husband.
president.
We told you so. We've never done that, but you and I just got irritated after we would get from our listeners, you guys don't understand. Michelle Obama's going to run and she's going to win. And we went, no, she's not.
No.
So, phew.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's the first time I've ever done that.
Yeah.
Let's have an I told you so segment.
Well, but
we told you so segment.
Because we've been doing it so long, it's always someone in that group. Chelsea Clinton, you know why we haven't heard from her? Oh, come on, stop. Nobody cares. What, she's got to be in her 60s now, right? I don't know. Bill's 100, isn't he? I don't know.
If that's the case, I'm older than I think.
Yeah. Remember when she went to work, was it at MSNBC? Or it was at NBC first, I think, right?
Boy.
And then Brian Williams, I think. He wrote this tribute to her, and he sounded more like a eulogy. And I thought,
oh, I remember that.
Brian, tone it down, dude. she's still very much alive. It was weird. It was just, but that's kind of what I guess the frustration is that it also happens with people on the left. The people that were saying, Michelle's going to run, Michelle, a lot of them were on the right. A lot of people on the left probably want her to run, and maybe some of them were saying it, but we were dealing with our audience who's mostly on the right. The left will get into the Michael Avenatti kind of mode. He's the next big superstar. Let's welcome Michael Avenatti.
There's nobody that Donald Trump fears more than Michael Avenatti.
Yeah. Hey, do they get TV in prison?
Possibly the next president of the United States, Michael Avenatti. Remember the collage of?
Oh, yeah,
that was the most fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was insane. But that's kind of why we really shy away from it. It's like, no. When they announce they're going to run, okay. We've just been doing this for so long.
Right. If you're saying that AOC is going to run, you're probably right.
Right. Well,
for 2028.
Back in 2004, it was right after the 2004 election. Bush won that handily, no issues. And a neighbor of mine, who's since departed. He was a nice guy. He was the crossing guard at the school. We live in a school zone, and there's an elementary there that some of my grandkids and my older kids actually went to over the years. They were slow learners. They were in their 30s. But the idea of him making my neighbor, and I'll never get over this, it actually makes me smile. He made this Hillary 08, handmade Hillary 08 sign and didn't put it in his yard. I think he thought, I don't know if he thought, I wonder if he thought that somebody would, take it down or something. Or one of the other liberal neighbors would steal it and put it in their yard. But he put it in his window. inside the house. You could see it, because it's glass, but it was there for the longest. I'll never forget the first time I saw it. I was like, really, dude?
So was his...
Not that I didn't think Hillary was going to run. It was just that, why would you make the handmade sign this early, 4 years out?
So that was his Christmas story leg lamp.
Pretty much, yes. Put it in the window.
Was it lighted?
No.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. But, that
strobes and
right,
lasers
right.
and LED lighting.
And, but I thought to myself, well, okay, there's a lot of talk and had been a lot of chatter around, her running. And then when Obama made her Secretary of State, and I think, a lot of people will tell you, well, that was the deal they made, and, blah, 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 and that would elevate her profile to the point of, at one point, then she would run for president, which in 2000, eventually in 2008, she did, and then Obama put her as Secretary of State, and she had her own run in 2016. That didn't go well, and but it was inevitable that Hillary was going to run. And as you mentioned, like AOC, those are kind of inevitable. You see it. They're not being secret about it. I mean, AOC hasn't said it, but she kind of says it, in her actions. I think Jasmine Crockett wants a bigger office. You'll be relieved when she's governor of Texas. Jeez. That's not going to happen. And if it does, I'm moving to Oklahoma.
Well, you can have now, because I was thinking, I don't know why I keep saying that in the nice pause. I was actually thinking yesterday, but I was thinking what the primary debates will look like for the Democrats, and are all the mainstream ones out? I mean,
I think they're out early.
Well, the mainstream,
I would think.
The mainstream media made a great big thing of Cory Booker. Remember that speech? And that was gone within 36 hours. Nobody was talking about it anymore at all. Nobody's talking Cory Booker. So you look at it, and I'm thinking in my mind, I went, okay, on the stage, AOC, Jasmine Crockett. And then in my mind, I said, David Hogue. And I went, wait a minute. No, he's only 25.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, man, it'd be great if he was up there. But I was thinking of those three until I realized, okay, he can't be on there. He's too young. But those type of personalities and that youth, Jasmine Crockett's 44 years of age. I don't, what's AOC, 37 now? Something like that?
Yeah,
I'm not really sure how old she is.
Yeah.
But you think of right now where they're going, as radical as they are, and you just see, again, it's tough to project out that far, but when you see, I mean, CNN was making a big deal how far Schumer has dropped.
Yeah. She's 35. She'll be 36 in October.
Oh, okay. All right. So she...
both of my daughters are older than her. Wow, my son's older than her.
I mean, you've seen you've seen it go viral. The ticket for the Democrats, and it's AOC and Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah, both of my oldest daughters, not my youngest daughter. But yeah, that's the question of how does it shape up in 2028? What does that look like? You and I ask this, and we often will get into this ahead of a primary season, right? I mean, this is far ahead of a primary season. But you've got to get into it because the announcements will start. My gosh, somebody might announce right after the midterms next year.
Well,
but
yeah.
But you start. Yeah. You have to look at where the party is, where the party's been going, what the trajectory is of the party, and we correctly assumed that in 2020 the primary stage was going to be filled with a bunch of Democrats who were going to have more. They have a contest to determine who hates Trump more and who's the bigger victim, right? So that part will still continue, even though he's not running in 28 until he changes the Constitution on that with an executive order, because that's how that works.
Oh, you saw that yesterday. Right? you saw yesterday that the Trump, now they're selling Trump 2028 as merchandise.
Yeah, right.
It's driving people up the wall.
Exactly.
And
it's like, going crazy.
We probably spent 5 seconds on it. Not happening.
No, it's not happening.
Not
but
happening.
It's great to troll the left.
Oh, yeah.
But it's, you have to look at what that stage would look like. If you're going through this, I think there's a possibility. I don't think, I can't say if it's going to happen or not. I think there is a real possibility that people like Rahm Emanuel and maybe even Newsom, by the time we get there, look at this and go, I don't think I can do it. Newsom, I don't have as much confidence that he would not run. I think he's going to run. I just think that's who he is. I think he's got the bobblehead and shoulders already waving when you ask him about it. He's already bobbing around. He's got that look on his face because I don't think he understands the whole blue bubble thing. I don't think he understands what he's really up against and how bad he's been as a governor, even by some liberal standards, and the fact that as radical as he is, by the time we get to 2028, he's going to look like a conservative by comparison if it keeps going in this way, in this direction.
Well, one of the reasons, because you look at the, I mentioned, in my mind it was David Hogue and AOC and Jasmine Crockett and sitting there going, wow. And, of course, the names are out there, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Tim Walz, whatever. But by that time, and this is, again, this was a moment in time yesterday looking at this, where the Democratic Party is right now. It might not be where they are 6 months from now or a year from now. The polling could be different. But right now, all the polling shows that the voter for the Democratic Party is as radical as it's ever been. And they don't want Schumer. They don't want Pelosi.
Yeah.
Who will be viewed as establishment 2 years from now when, people start, announcing that they're going to run? Will a Josh Shapiro be way too far right?
Right.
Will Gavin Newsom, will they look at him and go, no, he's just old establishment? Will they look at Buttigieg and say, he's old establishment? Will they look at Walz and say, he's too establishment? Mm-hmm. Where will they go? Because, when you see Walz out there saying, as he did the other day, and we played the audio cut, that the problem was we did not embrace illegal immigration and DEI enough. We should have pushed it harder.
Yeah.
And the radical transgender movement. That those things we need to push harder. It shows, and it shows the reality that he sees, that they can't do what Harris did. What he agreed with. Mm-hmm. He's saying we need to do this, but that's not what he did with Harris. He jumped on that campaign, and that campaign was trying to co-opt the major tenets of what Trump was promoting, where it actually came out to the first spot a couple days after she announced she was going to run, which was the ad on illegal immigration, that she was going to shut down the border because Trump failed miserably, and she was going to build the wall. And we burst out laughing. Yeah. Well, now there's a recognition we can't do this anymore. We have to be as radical as possible. We have to not just endorse illegal immigration. We have to endorse criminal illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
Gang member illegal immigrants.
Yep.
And, one of the stories, we'll get to that, the judge in New Mexico. Mm. I mean, you think about it, here's a judge. It's like, Venezuelan gang member, stay at my house. Yeah. I mean, the imagery of that, Republicans are going to pound on it. But who is the person that can bring sanity when Chuck Schumer is now completely rejected by the Democratic Party because he voted just for a continuing resolution that would ensure that the money for the Biden budget of last year would continue to October 1st. He's dead in the water for a continuing not a budget, a continuing resolution where that budget was actually created by the Biden administration.
Yeah.
It's
None. There's zero politically. Nothing makes sense.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks so much for being here, as always. Coming up following the top of the hour, the markets and what happened yesterday and what might happen in the future. We'll get to that. California's home insurance problem. You know, I think some home insurance rates have gone up 90% in 6 years.
Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. All right, so we made it to the Friday show, and one of the things we talked about in hour number one is, you call it the Civil War, whatever it is going on inside the Democratic Party, which obviously it is. And you wonder, what are Democrats thinking? How do they think they're going to promote their message? Now, we did play that one commercial from the one Democrat running for Senate in Michigan in 2026. And we actually said that would be an effective ad if it ran in August of that year.
Right.
Against whatever Republican would be running. And it was basically everything was economic. Everything was, prices. Trump said he'd cut prices day one, all that. But there wasn't one other issue that was brought up. Newt Gingrich mentioned it yesterday. We said this from day one. And we said, and this was concerning the tariffs, and said, even if you agree 100% that this is the right thing to do, if you can't get it wrapped up in a couple of months, and the problem is trade deals take years. Now, you may see the announcement of Charles Gasparino from Fox Business. We mentioned what he put on X yesterday, and then his op-ed piece in the New York Post saying, well, they're going to be announcing trade deals, but they're not trade deals. They're just a framework of a trade deal that both can accept right now, but they're really not trade deals. They're just, okay, we just agree with this, just do this now in order to an attempt to calm the market and maybe attempt to get it with enough countries where you can start the process of isolating China. But that would be, again, that would take years to do. And we said that's the problem because people are so hypersensitive right now to prices and the economy that if you don't have that completely done in 9 months to a year, you lose the midterms. And if you lose the midterms, then you can't accomplish anything.
Well, and pardon me, the bond market too has changed the game.
Yes, it has.
Going into this term for Trump, you still had on the table the ability and also leverage, again, coming in January 20th, to get China in a corner and corner them on intellectual property rights. I think that's going to be even more critical going forward with AI. I think it's why they moved and put the permit in place for NVIDIA on the H20 chip, which is the chip they sell in China. But they've got the U.S. requires NVIDIA to actually have this permit. They're basically keeping an eye on the process of what they're sending to China. I would say, or I question, again, open-ended question is there a great concern about AI and chips and everything else from China in terms of intellectual property rights? But on the larger picture, when the bond market started to change, that took away all your leverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
That is quite unfortunate. It may have happened anyway without, where we are in tariffs or any of the tariffs being announced against China or anybody else, any other nation. But we're here. This is where you are now. I think the game, because it's kind of what I was saying earlier, the eternal pause. I mean, I call it a pause. It may not be a pause. They're not going to call it that. They're going to call it a deal in the works.
A deal, yeah.
The outline for the framework, and keep talking in that ambiguous tone, which Trump used yesterday morning after China had announced that, hey, there's no talks going on. Regardless of what you hear, there's no talks going on. We're not talking to anybody. After that happened, President Trump yesterday morning, later in the morning, said, well, they talked, and it's not important who they are. I'm assuming it was Bessent, or Bessent was involved. I would have to believe Bessent had to be directly involved, not indirectly. I don't know who else is authorized, really, when it comes to China. So I'm guessing it's Bessent, Lutnick, maybe. But if that's accurate and true, and they did start the conversation yesterday, that's where it's going to go. And it's going to be, because the political win, if you want to call it that, I don't know if it's a win, is much like the USMCA Victory Lap, right? You don't have to get into the weeds on the details, because most people, first of all, your most loyal supporters are going to be with you wherever you go with this particular president, so that's not an issue. Now we've got to talk about independence. Well, what's a big thing with independence? The farmers are impacted in a big way. And the states, the farming states, have a lot of independence. And so when it comes to the midterm and Trump's agenda being done on Capitol Hill, they're going to have that leverage. If this is going to be put behind us, everything has to be focused on 26 full on, with the GOP getting a greater margin in the House and the Senate, because that's going to be required for him to get his agenda done for this second and his last term. And so I think that's what you're going to see. I called it the eternal pause. What it will mean is, hey, we came to an agreement, and they'll announce whatever level of tariff will be in place temporarily until the permanent deal is done, and you actually don't ever get to a permanent deal. Because politically, if you got to a permanent deal, if that deal isn't right and the markets judge it harshly, you're in trouble because you worked all that. They're not going to do it because it's going to take a long time. But just say for some, they went in, they waved a magic wand and got it done in a week. Again, it's not going to happen. But you announce a permanent deal. Well, if you don't get it right and the market judges you harshly, not just the market, the international market when it comes to bond markets, we have to regain the confidence in the world's confidence when it comes to Treasury bills. Because Treasury bills, U.S. Treasury bills, were the sure thing and had all of the confidence of everybody in the world up until recently. Don't shake that confidence. Put it back in place, and you do that with something ambiguous.
Well, just Charles Gasparino, and again, when I read a couple of paragraphs here, you're going to say, well, you guys have said this in the past, and we have. He says, Team Trump is looking for a face-saving off-ramp. By the way, he is from Fox Business, and also this is an op-ed piece in the New York Post. Team Trump is looking for a face-saving off-ramp in its global trade war, and they're ready to announce a deal in kind. I like that. That's new terminology. a deal in kind with at least one trading partner. I've learned how that manifests itself is unclear, but my sources are led to believe that the actual deals, signed agreements, even with the most friendly of trading partners caught up in the Trump storm, are probably not happening anytime soon. There's not going to be a trade agreement. Right. What is more likely is a series of public announcements coming from the Treasury Secretary and possibly the president himself indicating broad outlines of trade pacts that both sides can live with.
Right.
First out of the box appears to be India. The White House has signaled, in fact, my ex-posting on India that reported this progress immediately reversed the stock market losses at the open and turned the Dow green for the rest of the day. Japan could be next, followed by the UK, Australia, and even the EU. These will involve agreed-upon goals and issues that have been addressed and resolved, as well as a deadline for the deals, my sources say. What could disrupt the forward momentum? Trade partners are complaining to the people on Wall Street that the U.S. negotiating team is often obtuse in what it is asking. They sometimes don't really know exactly what the White House wants.
Yeah.
The nebulousness of the ask is what stalled the Japanese negotiations last week. The U.S. trade negotiations, according to this report from Gasparino, is, what do you want?
Right.
According to one Wall Street executive with contacts inside the Japanese government, the same thing could happen to the pending India deal. But with those out of the way, the administration can focus on China, the biggest deal yet to be had, and among the most difficult to hash out. How and when that happens is still anyone's guess, though the administration is now signaling to the mainland that it wants to negotiate. Wall Street executives say, yes, what looks like a cave often is one. This cave is based on economic and market realities of taking a major part of the economy in such drastic directions. Sure, Trump and the White House are correct in the central premise that the global trading systems puts the U.S. at a disadvantage. But consider the short-term pain. U.S. farmers, a key MAGA constituency, will be getting crushed until a deal is reached with China, which buys a lot of our agricultural products. Higher costs for tariffs, even those on pause, are being baked into the economic matrix. Bessent, more than anyone, can appreciate the power of the markets over the U.S. economy. During the tariff tantrum, people stopped buying our debt while stock indexes crashed. The doom spiral was imminent. Main Street got screwed by globalism, but ending the global trade order all at once, like Trump attempted, will bring massive short-term dislocations to the market and the economy, and for a time it did. Of course, and by the way, it didn't even start at that point. He didn't bring up that point. I think that's important to bring up. The tariffs really hadn't started yet.
Yeah.
Of course, Trump could change his mind and go all in again on tariffs after speaking with hawkish advisor Peter Navarro, and we'd be back to square one. If he doesn't, and that's a big if, it's also unclear if the deals of this nature will stem the economic damage caused when Trump blasted the world with trade sanctions, then put them on pause while he slapped massive ones on China, maybe the most important cog in the trading ecosystem. One top CEO told me, time is on the side of our trading partners. Inflation and maybe unemployment will eventually be picking because of the recent upheaval. There could be a very large, at least short-term damage that weakens the United States negotiating position. One thing is clear, the White House is waking up to the reality that for all the cheating on trade, we do rely on the world, China in particular, to buy our debt and sell us affordable goods. So there you go. And that's Charles Gasparino. I don't agree with everything he said there, but it's the point that he's a supporter of Trump.
Right, yeah.
And he's looking at a lot of the things that we looked at and said, if you have the short-term disaster, and who knows short-term how long it would be, and you lose next year, and that's why we said, what do you want? Do you want to attempt to do everything now and Democrats be in power?
Yeah. Well, I think again, when I said earlier that, you take an ambiguous approach, that's the messaging after whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And that is, the framework, the outline approach. And if they go that direction, let me say this, ambiguously positive, right? Great deal. It's going to be great and Trump knows how to do that better than anybody, right? It's going to be great. We've got, and we're working on more. You keep saying these things. They've agreed to buy more from all of these things, right?
It happened last time with China.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to buy more of our ag products.
They're going to buy, and you come in, and then you pump that into the markets, because once the media gets their fill of that ambiguous positive tone, there's really nowhere else to go on. It's not going to be, you don't need to take the gauntlet approach at all. The markets, the confidence of the consumer too. But the markets just want to hear investment into the U.S., companies investing the money and not parking the money. They want to hear something positive. They want to see, and however they judge it, in terms of whether Trump caved or didn't get what he wanted, really is the side point. But it's whether or not they believe it's going to be pro-market.
But you just point out part of the confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Trump has stated, I want massive investment in the United States, yet I don't want massive investment in the United States from foreign companies.
Mm-hmm. Well, he stood up there with Hyundai. He had a press conference with the Hyundai people. This is going to be great. Not only are they building cars here in the U.S., they're building a steel plant, and they're going to build parts here in the U.S.
And then at other times, he doesn't want foreign investment in the United States.
Yeah, who was it that and Navarro was saying that too?
Yeah, he wants it to. Right, Navarro said it.
Yeah,
this is a disaster.
Right.
What's going?
Of course. So we know where he is now. Yeah.
But that's part of the problem. As as the Gasparino pointed out, he said the trading partners are saying the negotiating team doesn't even know what they want because they keep changing their mind as to what they want.
Exactly. You can't be ambiguous or waffling at the table. Politically, once it's done, that's the messaging, but you can't have an ambiguous tone with your trade partners when you're at the table with them.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
The IFTA tax program redistributes tax revenue to states based on your actual miles run. Thus, the truly cheapest fuel can only be found if you subtract federal and state taxes and state surcharges from the pump price to compare. The strategy means that you buy without regard for whether you are paying more at the pump in taxes. IFTA also considers state surcharges, which complicates the fuel buying strategy. Indiana, Kentucky, and Virginia have per gallon surcharges. Connecticut, Kentucky, New Mexico, New York, and Oregon have per mile surcharges. While some owner-operators buy only enough fuel to get through surcharge states, this practice can backfire, depending on the actual cost of the fuel in each state. When comparing fuel prices, always remember, pump pride minus taxes equals the real fuel cost. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, like I said, we've said challenges are ahead in all of this trade negotiations, and we'll see exactly where it goes. But when we talk about the Democrats, and because that's one of the things we've seen this week is just the explosion inside the Democratic Party. But what are they promoting when they go out there and talk to their constituents? This is House Representative Maxwell Frost at a town hall meeting in North Carolina. He's a Democrat. Let's listen what he's trying to sell to the people. Here we go.
The reason you can't pay your rent has nothing to do with trans people. The reason that you don't have health care has nothing to do with the immigrant. And it has everything to do with corrupt billionaires like Elon Musk.
Yawn.
Now, the whole point is of any politics in the United States in 2025, can you sell that argument to independents? No, because you immediately look at it and you say, I'm not making the case that your rent has something to do with trans people.
Right.
Not making the case that healthcare challenges in the United States are related to the immigrant, except you can make the case, which would be against the Democrats, of illegal immigrants and what they're costing states in healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah.
And has everything to do with the corrupt billionaires like Elon Musk. Sorry, everybody knows that their lot in life got nothing to do with Elon Musk.
Right.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here, as always. You know, interesting because what you've seen the last couple of days are Trump supporters that, you know, really I think have gotten in the president's ear saying, you can't do this. You can't. And I was reading here, this is from Breitbart, again, not a liberal publication, and an interview that they did with Carol Roth, the investor, TV personality. She's done acquisitions and everything else. She's in the business world and has written books about small business and all that. She said, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has been the all-star, but lacks the clout to set policy. And the messaging, this is something we've talked about, the messaging from the administration has been abysmal because there are 10 different messages. Things that come out are then walked back on a daily basis. It's not cohesive, and everybody has sort of a different reason. If we wanted to punish China for the things they absolutely do, I think it would make more sense to split it up and say, okay, if you're a Chinese business that is selling direct to our consumer, maybe we slap a tariff on you. But if you're a U.S. business that has a China supply chain that you are going to lose out on jobs, revenue, profits, and probably give that business over to a foreign competitor or even a big business, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially when we don't have the option to switch. You know, that's something that we have brought up. Look, some of the other errors that were brought up is when the initial talk came up. Mm-hmm. That until a couple of months ago, the president never talked about the downside.
Yeah.
That there was going to be suffering when he took over. I mean, all during the campaign, tariffs are beautiful and we're going to enrich ourselves. Everybody's going to be rich. There's going to be more money than you could possibly ever see. And, you know, then you even got into, you know, after the Doge $5,000 check, they got into the tariff checks that will be sent out. And it's like, you're way overselling. You put yourself in a bad political position of way overselling and under-delivering. And that can only set you up for political disaster. And so when you look at it, now, I'm not saying what she said is going to change that, because I don't think that there are many Chinese businesses, maybe retail, in clothing, stuff like that. If you order something online.
Yeah.
Probably all of us have done it. You order something on Amazon and it says, if it doesn't say will be delivered tomorrow, you can almost guarantee it's coming from China. Mm-hmm. You know, if it says 7 to 10 days, you can almost guarantee that's coming direct from China. Right. You may look at that and say, okay, you put a tariff on that. How much would that affect? Because one of the challenges is, as we have stated before, and we know it goes back, but we use the iPhone. When they did that whole thing on the iPhone that's assembled in China, they said, well, we're getting ripped off. It's like, no, because there are 20-something countries that produce the products that go into an iPhone. And this goes back, 8, 9, 10 years ago when we talked about this. Oh, no, probably was 2018, 2017, 2018. That's when we probably talked about it. But whatever iPhone was out at that point, you had 400 manufacturers, including 68 in the United States. But the vast majority of the profit, once you sell it, went to the United States and went to Apple.
Yeah, right.
Because they're the creator of it. Where it was assembled, they may have got the assembly portion of it, but they don't own the iPhone. Apple does,
right,
which is an American company. So they went through explaining just how it is. Well, you look at cars, and she mentioned it here when Carol Roth mentioned it here. If your U.S. business has a China supply chain, that you're going to lose out on jobs, revenue, profits, and probably give the business over to a foreign competitor or even a big business, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We'll see whether the auto tariffs take place. That would be next. I don't know why I was thinking it was this week. I'm a week ahead. The tariffs are supposed to take place May 3rd.
Right.
And you have GDP numbers coming in next week for the first quarter, and then a couple of days later, the decision has to be made whether to implement those tariffs. And one of the problems is the U.S. auto companies have all gone to the president and all written the administration saying, you can't do this. It's going to kill us. We get parts from all over the world. Thousands of parts make up an automobile.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make them all in the United States. That's not going to happen. And if the goal wasn't to make it happen, it would take decades to do something like that. And probably you still wouldn't be able to make every part in the United States.
Right. Yeah.
Because the cost would be too prohibitive.
Right.
And so, that is the problem there. So one of the problems, I think, was coming out even during the campaign and saying tariffs are wonderful. They're wonderful. We're going to become rich. You're going to get rebate checks. You're going to get Doge checks and rebate checks. And we said, these things aren't going to happen. Stop it. Don't promote stuff that is not going to happen. And so you put yourself in that particular situation. The other thing was, and I think it was absolutely horrible, because you had the Trump surrogates out there. They were doing it on Fox News. Oh, your 401k doesn't matter. I'm not going to be cashing in my 401k anytime soon. To sit there and take something that people that have 401ks, and it's 60%, I think, of the population, and they were focusing on, 40% don't have 401ks. They're not the ones that matter. It's the ones that have the 401ks. And to sit there and say, well, it's not good. If we're going to take a hit on it. Well, people that have 401ks pay a lot of attention to it. Because people that have 401ks sit there and say, all right, I'm going to take a hit of what I want now to put it away for the future. And I'm going to grow it. And I want a lot in there because by the time I retire, I'm going to be in a much lower tax bracket, and that makes it more advantageous to me. But I'm going to need that money at that point. And to sit there and poo-poo that and just sort of throw it out, that's not.
Yeah, that didn't work for them.
No, it didn't.
They moved on from that.
Yes,
sure.
they did. And they should have.
Mm-hmm.
Newt Gingrich talked about this yesterday during an appearance on Kudlow. He warned House Republicans, and by the way, the warning also goes to the White House, about the political consequences of a weak economy as the 2026 midterm elections approach. According to Gingrich, a strong economy is life and death for House Republicans. Henry Kissinger once told me, this is a quote from Gingrich, told me one time that every major decision he was involved in took 48 hours. Gingrich said, you weren't quite sure when the 48 hours is going to occur, but when it came down to the crunch, it took 48 hours. Sooner or later, the problems aren't going to go away. We know what they are, and I must say, I think that the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, for example, House of Ways Means chairman also in the House have done a really great job of bringing their teams together. I think you're going to see an awful lot of conversation, and eventually over the next couple of weeks, they'll grind their way to a solution. But look, this is life and death for the House Republican Party because they have to have a strong economy in 2026 if they're going to have a chance to keep their majority. if we have a bad economy next year, Republicans will not keep the House. So the Senate doesn't feel the same pressure, which is unfortunate. But I think from the standpoint of President Trump, it's very clear that he has to have a Republican House and Senate if he's going to make the last 2 years of his term successful.
Yeah, there's really no question on that. You've got to, and you have to get all of this chaos here behind you, ASAP. And I think that's clearly the goal now. You can see that in the last, really 24 hours. I think one of the big things was that China came out and made a statement. Hello, we're not talking to anybody. We're not sure who they're referring to. And it was kind of clear when Bessent was talking the other day, because he was saying that if we're going to balance, if we're going to have balanced trade, then the U.S. and China, we have to do that together. Well, that implied that you're not talking to China yet. And everybody knew there no talks had started. So now, after that statement officially yesterday from China, which, by the way, it shouldn't take that. But by yesterday morning, after that statement, the tone had changed. All right, we're talking now. And that's where you see, I think there's a lot of renewed confidence in the markets because I think of what the president said. They're talking, which means there's going to be a deal, which means the high tariffs are not long-term. And that's what the market said yesterday. That's what they believed, at least for the day. And you're not going to get a deal. You're just going to get, again, the outline, which is going to be, again, the forever pause.
I don't think China didn't respond after, did they?
No, they didn't.
I'm just reading here CNBC because they have the article. Trump asserts trade talks with China are underway after Beijing denies the ongoing negotiations. But I'm looking at the timeline because the timeline is important.
After that, yeah.
Right, he said it afterwards. Right,
right. And the way they did that headline made it sound like he was saying something against what China said. No, he was saying that after they said that, and he said it was something. Again, he said. They're talking, and it's not important who they is, which means they don't even want the media to be led in the direction of who's talking. It can't
sort
be
of
anybody
is,
but Bessent.
If Kid Rock is negotiating,
probably. I don't think that's what he was saying.
I know.
He was telling the media that it's not important to you guys who's doing the talking. Now, there's no way that it's not Bessent. There's no way Bessent isn't involved.
You think it's Navarro?
No. I think it's Lutnick and Bessent. I think that those are the negotiators, and I think Bessent is the lead.
Or the trade representative. I can't think of his name at the moment. There's the lead trade representative also.
Yeah. But I think with China, it's going to be Bessent and Lutnick. I think those are the two that are going to be leading it because the thought that Bessent doesn't have, I don't know what they say, the clout. Well, but he has the authority, and it's clear now he's in charge of this entire thing. So when it comes to China being as monstrous as that whole thing is, I'd be shocked if Bessent's not directly involved. So,
right, but when it comes down to a negotiation, not a general framework, but a negotiation. The trade representatives actually do that because
they have to be involved. But
Bessent wouldn't have the time.
Well, no, he wouldn't. But there's no way he's not directly involved.
Yeah, of course,
with what's going on now.
Right.
So, which is my point. And there's no way. Again, I'd be shocked if he wasn't. And he probably won't talk much about it. The answers will probably be from Bessent. Well, we're working on a deal. We're working on a deal. There's, like you said the other day, great opportunity, great opportunity, great opportunity, ambiguously positive. You keep it that tone going, and the markets are going to respond to it. If you look at what yesterday, what happened, it was almost a 2.5% pop on the NASDAQ.
Mm-hmm.
That's technology. And they were responding. That was a response to President Trump saying they were talking. So just that is going to get you leverage. There's no telling if they come out with a broader announcement on this. Like I said, the Dow could hit 50,000.
Yes. Advice to President Trump, do not say we're going to war with Iran tomorrow.
No, save that for Saturday.
Right. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The Atlanta Fed GDP Now yesterday had an update, and their estimate for the first quarter is negative growth now of minus 2.5%, up from 2.2% that it was on April 17th. So that's another thing the administration is going to have to deal with, because Democrats will pound on that if it comes out negative.
And they likely know where it's going to come out already. Inside the White House, they likely already know, and if not by now, certainly by Monday morning they will. The point being is, and Wednesday is when they release the first quarter GDP numbers, but you want something to temper the markets if you believe it's going to be, if you know it's going to be negative growth, because the markets are going to react to that. You want to respond ahead of time with something positive on trade to temper them.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here this morning, as always. We made it to Friday, yes.
It's only at 2 a.m. Central, so let's calm down.
Yeah, I found this audio from Don Lemon and Jim Acosta.
Yeah,
I don't know which podcast it's on. It's one of their podcasts, but they're talking about how their podcasts are really bringing the truth out there.
Yeah,
since they're both gone from CNN. But I was chuckling. I was just playing it, and we need to get rid of all of our audio cuts. I don't mean throw them away. I mean play them before we get out of here.
Exactly.
For this week, because there were some we weren't able to play. Friday should just become audio cut day. We just sit here and play all the audio cuts we couldn't get to during the week.
We'll just record ourselves going, and here's Don Lemon, and then we'll just have the production crew just roll it, and we'll go home early.
It's true.
I mean, we got so much to play.
But here's some of the back and forth between Jim Acosta and Don Lemon, both now not with CNN, on their own and their podcast.
But I think it's another nail, especially in the confidence that people have in corporate media, the trust that they have in corporate media. And I think that is why folks like you, over here on Substack, doing extremely well. I'm doing okay on Substack. Also,
you're doing
on
great.
YouTube, doing
Watch
well.
Don on Substack. Yeah. Watch Don on YouTube.
Yeah. And so I think that's why we're having such success. And they don't care if you're on the North Lawn and the South Lawn of the White House with pancake makeup on and all the lights and the shiny desks. They want people they like, they trust, and they care about. And I think that's figures like us. People can trust that I'm going to tell them the truth. I'm also not going to bombard them with frivolous stuff. I'm not going to have false equivalency on my show. I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. And I think people like that.
There you go.
I was drinking my electrolyte mixed during that. You shouldn't play that. You shouldn't play ever, Don, when I have a drink to my mouth, Don Lemon saying, people trust that I'm going to tell them the truth. I didn't spit, but I normally, I nearly lost it. I nearly got to the point of spitting out my drink there. We can all trust Don Lemon to tell the truth.
I'm happy they have, I'm thrilled to have their podcast. I'm waiting for the next Don Lemon bomb. Still the best one ever. The best one ever from Don Lemon, ever, was when he was working for CNN, and after the Malaysia airliner disappeared, and he had all these experts on, what's her name, Mary Shivo, one of the top people, that had talked about airplane crashes and, the problems with, commercial airliners and things that she could see. And you had all these former NTSB people on. And then he says, our audience was wondering, so we're going to ask the question, could it have been something different? Could it have possibly been a black hole that sucked in the airliner? And you and I mean, they had the crawl, they had the banners, on there. So you and I realized that they sat in the meeting before his show, and somebody said, okay, let's talk about the possibility that the airplane was sucked in by a black hole.
Yeah. Right. And he actually, that was his leading question. What do you think, Mary?
Right.
Was it a black hole?
And she was, because what she wanted to say. Do you have any clue as to what a black hole is? Do you have any idea that if there was a black hole, it would suck in the planet, the solar system, and a significant portion of our universe?
And her very professional, always calculated approach, kind of what she said. Well, no, Don, because that would mean that the entire universe would be gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or solar system.
Yeah.
Maybe not universe, but the solar system.
I think the universe goes.
That's
my black hole theory.
Did she say, like, if it was a pinprick of a black hole?
Yeah. Look,
everything's gone.
Let me explain to you, and clearly your production staff there, Don, how black holes actually work.
Could you imagine if you or I? This is what we enjoy. We enjoy thinking about when the liberal media does something insane, like that day when they did that on CNN.
Yeah.
And they held a pre-production meeting before the show. They had 10, 12, 15 people all sitting around a table. What are we going to do tonight, Don? And how are we going to do the show? Well, what do you think? What are some of the possibilities of the plane? Well, we had a drunk caller. He was either drunk or on acid that called that said, hey, guys, could it be a black hole? Let's go with that.
Let's start with that.
Somebody get the banners out. We got to make sure we got the banners running beneath it. Did a black hole suck in the Malaysia airliner?
Yeah, we're radio. We don't have banners, but we would put banners up for that reason.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But to get to that point of doing it shows the lack of any type of scientific knowledge at all.
But hey, things are going well on Substack.
Well, the thing that got me is how they used a listener. Listeners are asking, could it be a black hole?
Yeah.
And it's like, could you imagine if you worked, Eric, and I'll say we worked for a network, and a network said the head production people came in and said, look, on the show tonight, we've got some people asking whether it could be a black hole, and we want to ask that question to the experts. What would you and I say?
There's no way in hell.
Are you out of your freaking minds? We look like a bunch of idiots even entertaining that.
Now, I'll point out the other idiots, that are suggesting it could be a black hole, and go, look. And then start with Mary. Mary, obviously not a black hole, but could you tell us what are the possibilities here as to what happened to this plane?
No, you don't you don't bring up the black hole at all.
Well, no, you have to discount it. If you're going to bring it up, you definitely have to discount it in front of her, is my point. And you ask her, the leading question has to be, what are the possibilities of where this plane could be?
Yeah.
Line that out for us based on your experience.
That was
because, first of all, it's not respectful to her.
No, you're right. Don't ask an insulting question to an expert. Don't make it known to the expert that you're a complete idiot.
There's a reason you're having her on, because you're clearly not smart about these things. I'm the first one to tell you I'm not smart about those things.
Yeah,
but I do know what a black hole is.
You understood what the concept of a black hole is.
No, I mean her the aviation and all the crashes and her experience.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not smart about that. I know that. That's why I have her on. You don't disrespect your guest by throwing such a lame question at them. It shows, number one, you don't really care about their expertise enough to do just a little bit of homework. I mean, does no one have the Googles over there at CNN?
The Googles. I like this. Media Research Center is one that posted that little clip, and they write, CNN washouts, Don Lemon and Jim Acosta, think they're saving the media's credibility with their podcast. More people watch the WNBA than these two morons combined.
That's not true. Nobody's watching the WNBA.
No, I want that. Look,
by comparison, it could be more.
But we said it before. We want them. We're the last ones to say, don't do a podcast. We want them. In fact,
we play their audio.
Right.
This is great stuff for us.
Right. I want them to be sitting in their homes, as obviously both of them are sitting in their homes.
Mom!
And I want them sitting. Jim, could you get Jim? Jim's in his home.
Yeah.
So is Don. Keith, where's Keith? Get Keith in his basement.
Yeah.
Olbermann, could you get him too? But we want them to even feel more freedom. If they feel that, okay, we were working for CNN and you know, they were directing us too much. And that's the problem with TV. That's why you and I have never had any interest in TV. The real freedom that you get to articulate is in podcasts, but it started with conservative talk radio.
Yeah.
When you think about it, the modern conservative talk radio that started really in '88 with Rush.
Yeah.
You know, that's what really started it. And I know we worked for, a major company, and we worked for Disney, that as liberal as you can get. They never tried to control anyone at all. And I think people sort of know, for example, you would know if you're a person with any smarts whatsoever, if you watch that Don Lemon show where they were asking the question to Mary Shivo, the transportation expert, whether a black hole took down the Malaysia airline, you at that point said, okay, these are the idiots up there. It's you either blame it on Don Lemon or you blame it on his producers because it was his show. And you say, how stupid, this guy's clueless. Mm-hmm. And that's the last thing that you want. And so they're saying we have much more freedom to say the things that we want on our own podcast. God bless them. I want them to feel more free. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to feel that, okay, we're under the big shoe of our management. Mm-hmm. We don't want them to step on us. And they may think that way because they got so radical. Yeah. They got so incredibly radical. And that's the other thing, too, because we have talked about the whole thing with, whether it's NPR or the whole CBS thing and, government telling us what to do or government pulling the funding or management pressure. If you and I lied like they did, if you and I lied like the mainstream media does, or lied by omission, which means you leave things out, our own audience would call us on it.
Oh, yeah.
And there would be management pressure.
Yep.
If we outright lied every day and just lied and made stuff up, we would feel pressure from management. Mm-hmm. It's their real estate. They have a right to say, guys, look, we hired you because it doesn't matter whether we agree or disagree with your opinions. We know you don't lie on the air. Yeah, if you make a mistake, you're the first ones to come forward and say, look, I made a mistake there. Didn't mean to say that. because they know we have no interest in discussing anything that isn't truthful.
Telling Steven Tyler this just yesterday.
Exactly. Right. And with the 12,000 women that I've slept with, I was saying the same thing.
Yeah. Right. By the way,
I'm sorry, Wilt was 20,000. That's right. Wilt,
was 20?
Wilt Chamberlain
So
slept with 20.
So for you, it's 22,000?
I've got to up them by a couple of thousand.
Hey.
I want that record.
Hey, I was with Aerosmith. You can do anything.
Wait a minute. You're with Aerosmith.
Uh-huh.
Way over 22,000 women.
Not what you think.
Oh, man. That's right.
Tambourine player is the last in line.
That's right. That's right. You were there.
It's not about the girls.
You were competing with
That's right.
Steven Tyler and Joe Perry.
Yeah.
No, but Joe Perry is married for a long time, you told me. Was that you told me that?
I don't know if I told you that. I think that is the case, right?
Yeah, somebody told me that.
Is or was. Yeah.
Married for a long time. Yeah.
And also, so am I for a very long time. I've been married for 35 years. So, yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
You've got to answer to
There's
somebody
that.
when you get home.
Yeah. She listens to George Norrie, but that's okay.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
In Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. We covered this yesterday. Who was it who said, I'm trying to think of it. Who was it who said that? Oh, it was Margot Cleveland was the first one that said she believes now with the stay for Garcia that the administration's negotiating to bring him back. And then bring him back and then ship him out.
Yeah.
To Guatemala, Rwanda.
Right.
Gitmo was the three places that she said. I don't know where she got that from, but Mark Halperin brought it up on his podcast.
Yeah.
About, because we had said it yesterday, we said, well, they bring him back, Democrats going to be screaming for he needs to be able to stay. And then it's going to be a disaster for Democrats as they double down on it. Here's what he had to say. Okay, let's start this over again if we could, please. Okay, thanks.
Doesn't mean Democrats are benefiting. I think we're hanging ourselves a little bit.
But let me just say on Garcia, Washington Post story. Very few people out there, and AP, very few have reported this, so it's undercovered in the news cycle. The judge last night basically took sealed motions from both sides, and it appears from the few things are public that he may be coming back to the United States. That negotiations are going on with El Salvador to bring him back. Not that he's going to be free, and it's going to put Democrats in a crazy position because some of them are going to give him a hero's welcome when he comes back, and that's not going to be good. Anyway, Dan.
And that's not going to be good. I'm sorry. I don't know why I got such a kick out of it, but I did.
Well, it's what I said yesterday. You know, I'm wondering, do they know this? Do they know? Because the thing with Van Hollen did not work for Van Hollen. It was horrible for Van Hollen and the Democrats. The residual fall off from that was bad. They may think they're still winning, but they're not. So the administration looks at this and says, wait, we could comply with a withholding order, get back into compliance, also send him right back out, which, you know, again, if word got out that he's coming back, there's going to be all these rallies,
celebrations,
and celebrations thinking we'll work to keep him in America where he doesn't belong. And then he's right back out. He goes to Gitmo or wherever he's going, and they're furious, and they're back in furious mode. I mean, it's better than trolling because they're the ones that created this. All the Trump administration would be doing was complying with a court order. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
And
we facilitated the release,
yep,
as the Supreme Court has said, and now we're sending him right back.
Now we're sending him somewhere else.
And
Yeah.
you get more impressions of the Democrats celebrating and then screaming when he leaves.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
I think politically, again, this doesn't look good for Democrats. It's not going to go well at all. It's just going to be, it's a bad look. It's not something, we don't know why they choose to die on these hills, but they do. Here's a guy who's an MS-13 gang member, and they're making excuses for him. It's horrible optics. But it's the same group that wants to put pornographic material in front of 5-year-old eyes.
Well, and then you had the story yesterday, the ex-New Mexico judge and his wife were arrested for allegedly harboring an illegal Venezuelan gang member. It's just like...
By the way, these gang members got to be going, can you believe this? We're getting... But Hamas is saying the same thing. After October 7th, Hamas is going, we've got political supporters in the U.S. cheering us on because the anti-Semites are everywhere. The enemies of this country, the people who want to do us the most harm, got to be scratching their heads going, well, we don't know how all this works, but we're going to roll with it. I get to stay in the home with a former judge and his wife.
It's so bad the terrorists are saying, are they just trolling us or do they really support us?
Is this a trap or is this something we're not catching on here?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. Yeah. All right. We said we want to play audio cuts that came out this week. This is really interesting because, in the talking of the tariffs and everything else and where our economy is going, one of the questions that you and I asked is any free trade agreement, long-term free trade agreement, already obsolete? And that's because of AI coming in. And, the president 2 days ago said we're leading in AI technology here in the United States, and we're going to produce the electricity for it. Well, if you do that, does cheap labor matter as much? It will in certain industries, I'm sure. Yeah. But when you look at long term, you say, okay, who are we going to invest in, the United States or Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, they've got cheap labor. The AI and the systems that are set up in the United States, well, the efficiency and productivity of AI supersedes cheap labor. Now, I'm not making that statement. I'm projecting out and saying, is that the case? And these are kind of the questions that we want answered from the people that are talking about, number one, well, AI isn't going to replace every job.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, how much productivity and efficiency would it bring in a year or two? Can it increase the productivity and efficiency of current manufacturing systems, which in the United States are not the typical assembly line that you might see over in Vietnam? I'm just using Vietnam as an example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It could be any country that is going from third world to second world or second world to first world, whatever, that still uses human labor like we do not. And that's a question that I think will be answered sooner or later as AI is implemented. Like I said, we've heard everything from nobody's going to have to work anymore. Well, that's never happened when we have had massive increases in technology. Never happened. always more jobs have been created. The last person really to say it was the smartest man ever to be president of the United States, who said, well, we're losing jobs here because of ATMs. It's like, shut up. What an idiot. It's like Obama said that back. It was like, shut up.
Bank teller jobs were going away.
Right. It was just like, stop it. And so you look at the increase in productivity. You think about it. The increase in productivity, you take it from just 100 years from 1830 to 1930. In 1830, where, we probably were 90% of the people were in agriculture. Think about that. Well, that's how cities were formed, that massive change.
Yeah.
When people came to the cities for, manufacturing jobs, and then, again, then you had the modern, when Henry Ford, the modern assembly line, mass production happened, and then mass production continued until technology got to the point where robots could start replacing humans, on that particular job level. And so you look at that, and that's one of the questions that we have: is any long-term trade agreement going to be obsolete? Then there's the other thing. Let's say we get not the manufacturing of old, but the manufacturing of new, of the new manufacturing because of AI. Let's say we get it over here. Do we have the workers? It's one of the questions that Trump brought up, and funny because we had played Jim Acosta a little while ago with Don Lemon. That was when Jim Acosta got kicked out. That back and forth session, Trump was talking about the fact of, look, I'm separating illegal immigrants from immigrants. We want legal immigrants because with the job growth rate that I expect, we're going to need them to fill jobs. We don't have the population growth in the United States, but still we do. And this is something that critics of that philosophy might point out, that we right now have millions of people that aren't working. Over 6 million able-bodied men that aren't working.
Yeah, right.
And Micro talked about it on Theo Vaughn's podcast this week. Now, I just want to make it clear, he doesn't say it doesn't sound like he says the word or they nixed out the F. But just so you know, in the
original podcast.
In the original podcast, it says, I'm reading the transcript, he says the F word, but they made the F silent. So it's like a beep in there, just so you know, in case anybody might be offended by that. He actually does not say the word.
Yeah.
See how we always put out the disclaimer?
Yeah, it's been edited.
Yeah, it's covering your butt. But it was a different kind of covering up the word, so that's why we just want to.
And to be clear, you just said the word but you meant B-U-T, one T.
Yeah.
Just one more.
Stop correcting me or I'll kick your butt, B-U-T. All right, here we go.
Or.
All right, here we go. This is Micro talking, talking about this, and he goes, something beyond tariffs, something beyond policy. It's going to have to make the 22-year-old go, yeah, I'd consider learning a trade. Here we go.
It's not enough to create the jobs.
Right.
And look, a lot of your listeners are probably thinking, well, make the pay better, make it more interesting, make it more palatable. And we can have that conversation for sure. But the bigger issue still is there's no enthusiasm for the work. We took shop class out of high school. We robbed kids of the opportunity to even see what that kind of work even looks like. Meanwhile, we told a whole generation of kids they were freaking screwed if they didn't get a 4-year degree, right? And so people say, Mike, how did college get so expensive? I know you know this, but nothing has gotten more expensive in the last 40 years than a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
Not real estate, not healthcare, not energy, nothing, right? And so we keep telling kids they're screwed if they don't go in this direction. We free up endless money to loan them. So now you got $1.7 trillion in student debt on the books. You've got 7.6 million open jobs right now, most of which don't require a 4-year degree. And here's the other screwed up part. You got 6.8 million able-bodied men who are not only not looking for work, they're out of the workforce and not looking.
Right.
So all of that together, we've never seen that before in peacetime anyway. So something beyond the tariffs, something beyond policy is going to happen to make 22-year-olds go, yeah, man, I would consider doing that. It's not a
Well, I guess, I look at my life, and I've constantly worked just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And, even during college, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, when you talk about 6.8 able-bodied men that aren't working and aren't looking for work, what are they doing?
Right.
How do they survive?
Yeah, I don't have a clue.
I mean, that's
living at home. Mom and Dad. Wow. They're the Keith Olbermann. Right.
Yeah, but at least he worked. It wasn't productive work.
Mom. The resistance.
6.8 million able-bodied men not working.
Yeah.
Are they living with their parents, and are their parents all taking care of them?
Or they're surfer duding he's the surfer dude, remember? Lived on this couch, that couch.
Did I miss out on something, that there are millions of women willing to take care of me?
Oh, no. None of these 6 million have girlfriends.
Oh, okay.
Exactly zero.
Okay. All right.
Actually, it's something that I had a family member, she's in her early 40s, recently tell me, said, you wouldn't believe how many in my age group, and that would be roughly 40-ish, early 40s, don't own cars, they don't own things, they don't aspire to own anything, they don't want responsibility for anything. I said, no, actually, I'm not surprised. Because when you teach them that we're going to give you a grade for showing up, we're going to give you a trophy for not winning, we're going to give you all these things because you're awesome, then expect that they're going to keep laying on the couch. It's not their couch, but they don't care.
Well, what makes the difference between that and, for example, me now being an old man, not fearing death, but fearing the fact that I won't accomplish everything I want to before I die?
Well, no, it's something, I remember watching my dad work on his college degree. He was an enlisted man. He wasn't one of these college boys, Red West said in Black Sheep Squadron.
Oh, greatness.
My dad was an enlisted guy, but then after he was, I think you have to be I think it's back then it was under 35 to get your degree and then apply for OTS, Officer Training School, and then, become an officer. But that didn't stop him. He wanted to because, he had a family. By then he had been to 2 foreign wars. And I remember sitting in San Antonio, our house on Adams Hill Drive. He was leaving and had a briefcase with him. And I said and he wasn't dressed in his uniform, his Air Force uniform. I said to my mom after the door shut, where's Dad going? He's going to school. I'm thinking, oh, well, I go to school during the day. Why is he going to school in the evening?
Yeah, my dad did that too.
Yeah.
My dad went to school when he was working, I think, a couple of jobs.
Yeah.
And had a family. He was still going to school.
And he ended up getting his master's degree, ended up teaching law enforcement and criminal investigation eventually down the road from that. But, what is it that drives certain people one way? And I don't ever remember my dad being home with the exception of one day, and I mean home from work. And it was the day my sister was born in 1970. And I remember that day vividly because he shouted he finally got a girl. And he went, and we lived on base, off at Air Force Base in Nebraska, and he went to the door and shouted, to the neighbors in the little courtyard. We lived on base, and so it's kind of a cul-de-sac kind of thing, and he shouted to them, it's a girl, it's a girl, it's a girl. I remember that day vividly. But there are people that go through, their entire life and they don't, they just keep going. They just keep doing what they're doing. And then it is part of that pathology of dependency that Daniel Patrick Moynihan talked about in terms of government handouts. But this is the same arena, the same spirit of that. When you teach them, when you indoctrinate them, that they don't have to actually earn anything and they don't have to take responsibility, you will guarantee that a number of them will insist that they don't.
I have a question coming up that we'll delve into more after the top of the hour.
Okay.
Because it's a question that I have based on my life and your life too. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners' lives too.
Right.
That if you're a able-bodied person and you're not working and you're not looking for work, one of the things I don't understand.
Right. Yeah.
But that coming up, 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And we'll get to more of this on the top of the hour. But, when we played the whole Mike Rowe thing where he talked about, something beyond the tariffs and policy, whatever, is going to have to happen to make a 22-year-old go, yeah, I'd like to consider learning a trade or whatever. Because what a trade was compared to what a trade is today. I don't know, for example, that when I worked in machines, when I worked in the machine shop and I was a steel worker, whatever, I worked on regular manual machines where you ran it. I worked on the old NC numerical control machines and then the CNCs, which is when computers came in and started doing it. Either way, all of those, you're still going to have to know the same thing. You may not actually have to produce the product and move all the levers with your hands, but the fact is, you're probably going to be needed for setup and a bunch of different other things. And if not, if AI can handle that, then it's the repair and maintenance of everything.
Right. Yeah.
Because everything breaks.
And, what changes that? Something's going to have to change, as Mike Rowe said, and he's right. I think what changes that is something we talked about earlier this week, and that is greater demand for that efficiencies. When the marketplace, when the consumer gets greater efficiencies in their lives, they don't want to give those up. And the smartphones are a great example of that. And I think that's what creates more demand for filling those jobs, which means they have to pay more and more as we go along. That's part of innovation and the expansion of wealth.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, good morning. And so I just came upon this one. I'll post it on my X page in just a couple of seconds here, but Media Research Center put this out, and it's the quick. Let me see how long it is. 15 seconds, maybe?
Yeah.
Video, 12-second video from Wisconsin Democrat Governor Tony Evers. And here's a description of it from Media Research Center. Wisconsin Democrat Governor Tony Evers pathetically attempts to throw a football to promote the NFL draft in Green Bay. And then the last sentence. This is what leftism does to a man.
Yeah.
Now, it looks like he has never, ever touched a football in his entire life.
It looks like there are plenty of physical activities he hasn't engaged in ever. He's not a statuesque kind of guy. He's
I think that
looks pretty frail.
I do think that the Democrats could use this video to make the argument that men should be competing against women, except for the fact it would be majorly insulting to any woman athlete out there.
all the female athletes would be slowing. They'd be slowing down to let him catch up. Are you coming, Governor? Come on this way?
Maybe that's why they believe in the radical transgender.
You know what? We didn't think of this, and I think it's a fair point. Because if you look at the men on their side, they're going, what's the problem? So maybe we need to take another look at this whole thing.
I mean, it's just,
it's so horrible.
it's so bad.
Oh, and then he spikes the ball. He spikes the ball at the end. Oh man, it's like me and trying to try out for the Memorial Elementary Lobos in Del Rio, Texas, when I was a kid. And Coach Valdez, hey, you ever considered band? And if I'd spiked the ball, he probably would have said, after he quit laughing, he probably would have said, you just dropped the ball, right? You didn't. That wasn't a spike. Please tell me that wasn't a spike.
I just posted it at Gary Red Eye 1 if you want to look at it. But
Oh, my gosh.
It's just so bad.
It is horrible.
It is funny.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. It's so horrible. I'm going to have to repost that. All right, I'm reposting this.
Okay, did it come up? Okay, let me. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like my favorite part.
Spiking the ball.
Wisconsin Democrat Governor Tony Evers pathetically attempts to throw a football to promote the NFL draft in Green Bay. This is what leftism does to a man.
Well, and the problem, too, is the governor's throw, because what he does is he edits it to make it look like he's
throwing it to himself.
The quarterback
right.
and the receiver.
Right.
Well, so quarterback governor quarterback throws the weakest pass. By the way, I feel so much better about my football game, which doesn't exist.
I feel much better about my golf game now after watching.
And then the receiver governor version, when it goes to edit to that side, has to basically bend over to catch the ball because it's such a weak pass. They had full editing ability to make it look good, or at least better than this, and didn't do it.
Okay, he is 4 years older than me. He is 73. So
is he? All right.
So,
yeah.
But still, my father was 90, and when he was 90, could throw the football better than
wow.
I just love Media Research Center, though. This is what leftism does to a man. The only thing he could have done better is let's get Democrat governors to throw the football. Tony Evers, and where's Tim Walz?
Oh, my gosh. No, Tim Walz is on the sidelines with pom-poms.
It's a cheerleader.
Well, because that's where his hands would be anyway. Oh, just give him some pom-poms.
Oh, that is funny.
Oh, my gosh, that's hilarious.
It really is.
Well, So everybody in their office, I mean, we always go back to this. There was more than one meeting over this. And this was the result. I want to see all the ideas they threw out.
Understand, you can have so much more fun in your life if you do something that Eric and I have been doing for the longest time. Yeah. And when you see something that's really dumb that a politician puts together or anybody puts together, anything you see on social media that's completely ridiculous, whether it's a company that puts it together or a politician that puts it together, understand that the vast majority of time they had a meeting to discuss it. That's what we find hilarious, that they actually were sitting in a meeting saying, what can we come up with that will...
And something like this was a series of meetings. Here's my question. Does his chief of staff actually like him? I wouldn't have asked that question before seeing the video. Now I've got to ask, because this is bad.
Right. You should fire your chief of staff quicker than Hegseth.
Yes, exactly.
Did yesterday.
Wow. Okay, because you go through the meeting, no one suggested, look, we get an actual quarterback, anybody who's actually ever thrown a ball as a consultant, right? To train the governor to make it look like he's thrown a ball before. And then we get a receiver. Anyone. A child who's played out front with her dad. Anyone who's ever caught a ball to consult with the governor to make it look like he knows how to catch a ball and that he's actually done it before.
Now, I did it this past weekend with my great-nephew when I was back in Western New York.
Yeah.
Got in late Friday, went to sleep, woke up. As soon as I woke up, called him and said, coming over. Picked him up. We went to breakfast and we went to the driving range. And the reason we did that is I told him, you've got to do something besides basketball. Mm-hmm. And golf is something you need to get out, just swing a golf club. Yeah. Well, probably it took a half hour before I was willing to take a video and post it because he never plays golf.
Right.
And I posted it on my Facebook page, and if you see it, he's hitting the ball you sit there and go, oh, okay, he's played before. That was really about a half hour of just quick lessons.
Well, because I'm not trying to say that, I would look any better, but here's the difference. What John McNamara has always said, be right, which means in this case,
don't put it
on video if you know it's going to look like that. Right. You'll never see me doing that on video.
Right. Sit at a desk. What he should have done is sit at a desk with all football paraphernalia behind him, the Green Bay Packers logo, a picture that you could see of Vince Lombardi, maybe Brett Favre. That's what you do, and you hold the football in your hand, and you say, welcome, the NFL draft, and you hold the football in your hand, in your office. That's what you do.
Well, right. It's or you do this, right? You have a camera kind of over the shoulder of the governor, and this is going to be just kind of a little comedic approach, right? And everywhere, every office of the governor's office there at the Capitol is all of the workers and staffers are doing, the thump paper football thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so he's walking by these offices, and everybody's playing the little paper football thing, and then he walks up and says, wow, what's going on? Everybody's playing desk football today. And Governor, we're really excited about the draft. You know what? So am I. Next thing you see is him sitting down at the desk playing the paper football, and then he looks at the camera. We're excited about the draft. That was off the top of my head. His chief of staff clearly does not like him. We love football. We love the draft. We love everything football. But don't pretend to be a football player.
Well, the only thing I know from the draft is that the Bills picked a cornerback. They picked like 30th, and Sanders, what's his name? Sanders' son didn't get drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know. I don't know anything. I could care less about the draft. One thing, though, related to elections, we've always said elections are like draft day.
Right. You got to go play the game and win.
Right. So we don't get too excited about elections, even if our people win. Well, we do after the last 4 years. We did get a little bit more excited.
Well, I would say it was more euphoric for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
In this one, but as we said, it's just like draft day. Now you got to go out and produce, and how many people in the draft don't?
Oh, right, right.
But yeah, I just can't get into the. I can't sit there on TV and watch the the commissioner or people come up and announce and everybody's going crazy. I'm like, you know what it is? You know why? It's the same thing as why I can't watch either the Thanksgiving games where they bring out entertainment. They have the fake people that cheer.
Yeah. Yeah.
They hire people to cheer, whatever, because it's overhyped.
Yeah, right.
And as soon as I see that, I'm like, nah, why waste my time?
Well, I mean,
and the other thing is, I was sleeping. They used to hold it on a Saturday.
Yeah, right. Well, and another thing too is you find out the truth. Quite unfortunately, that sometimes Johnny Football's middle name is College, and that it doesn't translate. Or what's exciting for me, look, I'm excited for those young people that get drafted. That's got to be an exciting moment. Good for them. That's great. You still have to go on and, have that career. You got to play. You got to go through everything. But the fact that they're getting drafted is a huge accomplishment for them. I don't really have any. It doesn't mean anything to any team that I might support. It doesn't mean for me. And it means, again, seeing young people, it's like watching, Final Four basketball. It's just,
No, it is cool to happen, but the people must understand that you root for the Dallas Cowboys, so you're sort of the exception to the rule on that.
Root is a large word here. Wish is more of the word. And there's a lot of, it's a long wish list.
You mentioned Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
I did read an article on him that he realizes that he blew it.
Yeah.
And you sit there and, what is he, in his 30s now?
Right.
That's got to be a tough pill to swallow. And you look back, you go, but he's happy now.
Yeah.
At least he's happy. But he admits he blew it. And I went, oh, that's cool. And I was happy. I was happy to see he's moved on, but he does recognize it. And that has to be a tough place to be in your 30s, saying,
sure,
my God, I had an opportunity to do a lot of things. When he was, I'll never forget the one time I watched him. I don't even know who they were playing, but it was the one time that I actually watched a full game of his, and I was amazed by his talent, how he could move. And so I don't know if it ever would have translated to the pro game if he had been straight.
Right.
Been on the straight and narrow there.
Yeah,
but,
sober as we mean.
Yeah, exactly. But he...
in today's world, you have to explain straight. You got to clarify. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
By the way, somebody it was Dan posted, I'm just looking at some of the comments to the Governor Evers football video. It says, wow, don't smoke crack, boys and girls. A 3-yard pass? How sad is this? Oh, my gosh.
And there's the other thing. You're a governor. You couldn't find a real football field for 10 seconds?
Oh, that was funny stuff.
Yeah, that was good.
That made my...
That was good.
I'm so glad I discovered that about 20 minutes ago. I was like, well, this is great. I got to post this one. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Once a roadside inspection is completed, the officer will close it out, which involves the officer writing or typing up the report. The more the officer found during the inspection, the longer this will take. If violations were discovered, most officers, as a courtesy, will explain the violations to the driver. If there were any out-of-service violations, the officer will normally explain what must be done to get the out-of-service order lifted. Drivers need to be very attentive during this part of the inspection. The driver also needs to read and understand the complete inspection report. After receiving the inspection report, the driver has 24 hours to get the roadside inspection report to the motor carrier. If the driver will not be returning to a company facility within the next 24 hours, The driver needs to know to get it on the way to you via email, mail, or fax within 24 hours. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, one of the things that we were talking about last hour, we played the Mike Rowe comment. He was on Theo Vaughn's podcast, and he was talking about the fact that there's 6.8 million able-bodied men that aren't working in this country. And he was saying the point, he goes, no matter what we do in tariffs and policy, how do we get people actually want to work these jobs? If you have 6.8 million people, and you and I ask the question, well, what are they doing? I think the one thing that gets me the most is that I think that the pathology of dependency that liberalism has promoted now, for the last 70 years in this country?
Mm-hmm.
I think it has succeeded in doing something. I don't know how it happens to a particular human being, but it seems as if the natural curiosity that not only human life has. I look at my cat. My cat from what we know, isn't a sentient being. My cat's interested in everything. Your dog's interested in everything, right?
Your cat's having a party right now.
Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, but my point is the natural curiosity that we all have. I've worked a number of jobs in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Machinist, steelworker, club DJ, bill collector, the management program at a bank. Then I said, I don't think a banking for me, but I've done a ton of different things. Every one I was scared to do. Every single one I was scared to do.
Yeah.
Music DJ. I was a manager, managed a radio station. I've done everything you possibly could in radio. Every time I did something out of my comfort zone, I had to confront my fears. But there was another thing besides fear, and that was the natural curiosity. This is interesting. Can I do it? I never had a boring job. Even my first job, my first official job, cleaning toilets. I also worked at a gas station. Like I said, I've done a bunch of different things. I never hated any job. Even if I was scared to do something, the natural curiosity of, can I do that?
Mm-hmm.
And the pride I felt when I could. When I got the job at the bank, when I was in, my first year of college, when I was able to sit at the bus stop in a suit and tie, that meant something to me.
Yeah.
That was a benchmark of becoming an adult. We'll continue on this coming up.
On our website, RedEyeRadioshow.com. Show info with stations, podcasts, and more. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks for being here. When we played last hour, the cut from Mike Rowe, he was on the Theo Vaughn podcast, and he was talking about the fact that there's 6.8 million able-bodied men out there that aren't working and aren't looking for jobs. And, one of his questions is, how does this happen? And he talked about, trade school's been taken out of high school, things like that. And he said, policy, whatever policy Trump may have, or if tariffs succeeded wildly and brought back all of these manufacturing jobs with AI, who's going to work them? And he doesn't come from the point of view that we're going to need. This wasn't about bringing immigrants in to do that work, legal immigrants to do it. It was about why are able-bodied men unemployed and not working these jobs that are out there, because he talked about the millions of jobs that exist out there in manufacturing already that they can't fill. And so his point was, how do you solve the problem? How does it happen? What I think is interesting is when you talk about so many million men that are not working and not looking for a job. And then you ask the question, one of the questions I first ask is, are they in the black market? That'd be the first thing I would ask.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they're working.
Are they doing anything for money?
Yeah, what are they doing?
Or if you're a gig worker, you're actually a contractor and you're not seen as an employee. Are they just strictly gig workers?
Yeah, but you're still viewed as employed.
Yeah.
You have a job.
Self-employed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, self-employed. Right. You're not in that category that unemployment would put you in. But I guess the question would be for me is, how do you beat the hell out of natural curiosity of a person? And I say natural curiosity, but I also believe it's a product of your environment. Because I think about when I was young and, my father had, an incredible work ethic, just incredible. His working all the time on everything. But he had a great interest in working. My father wasn't Al Bundy coming home every day, from the shoe store complaining. He might complain at the dinner table about adventures at work, but they were mostly people that weren't getting the job done. And so we heard about it at the dinner table, which was cool to hear. Or somebody treating somebody not in the right way or whatever. But I look at it and go, there's a natural curiosity that I think, a ton of animal life has outside of even human beings. But then there's the environment that you grow up in, too. There's the examples that you take. There's great curiosity in many animals, but they have to be taught things by their mother, which is why, should I use the ducks in my backyard? The ducks take about 60 days before they fly away on their own because their mother teaches them a bunch of different things, and that is part of their environment. Well, we're sentient beings. We're supposed to be critical thinkers. We got the best brains of them all. What does it take to beat the hell out of natural curiosity, which I believe does defeat the fear that keeps a lot of people from wanting to do different things, because a lot of people hate change. But if you've got that natural curiosity that I know I had and my family has, I look at it and say, okay, it's natural. It may come and be that natural curiosity, but you also need that environment to push that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I remember thinking, when I looked at my grandfather, who retired, worked at the railroad, retired at 65 on my mom's side, and didn't do a lot, loved his TV room, would sit in the recliner, smoking his cigarette with a beer in his hand, and my brother and I are looking at him. He's watching his black and white television, Bonanza, and he always watched Bonanza. I just remember that. And we looked and went, God, we can't wait till we retire. It's going to be so great. And there were only, 3, maybe 4, if you count NPR, if that was on at the time in the 60s, or PBS. Mm-hmm. 4 stations, and we thought, that's it. To be able to sit in a recliner. Now, we weren't thinking of smoking cigarettes. I mean, that wasn't the thing, or drinking beer. We just wanted to sit in the recliner and watch TV.
And by the way, one of those networks was only on the air because of viewers like you. It was a kind of a, if you were watching TV, you were really vegging out. You were just, it was whatever came across. There was no watching anything on demand unless you went to a movie theater.
Right. And so, but that was as children. I couldn't imagine that when I reached 65 saying, okay, that's it, I'm retiring.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, when I got to be 50, I do remember thinking, when I get to 66 years and 2 months, wow, I can retire and I can go have fun. I can golf every day. I remember thinking, how much, man, I can ski all the time. I can't do that stuff. Well, I could. I just would have to get 2 knee replacements, a hip replacement, elbow replacements, ankle replacements, and then I probably could do it and then start all over in the hospital after I did it a couple of times.
Right.
Yeah, I'm athletic. I still work out, but the joints, those are the weak spots, as everybody knows. But the natural curiosity was always there, and I know for me, that helped to defeat any fear I had of doing something different. I always knew every job I ever had, I was proud of what I accomplished. I really was. Even when I had a college degree and ended up in a machine shop. And I'm still proud that I was actually able to do that. I always knew that no job was permanent.
Yeah.
I always assumed no job was permanent. So I wasn't looking at being a machinist saying, here I am, I'm 24 years old, and I'm going to be here the rest of my life. I was dealing with today and the paycheck that I made today to pay the bills on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was really it. And I start thinking, is it the pathology of dependency that has the power to wipe out natural curiosity? And I guess you and I can go back to Katrina, when we saw all of those young men outside of the Superdome that didn't get out, and we looked at each other and said, wow, is this an example of the pathology of dependency even defeating the will to survive?
The instinct to get out of the way of the storm, literally.
Right, the instinct of self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Because what else is causing it? You know, I sit there and I look at, and I'll make a case for political ideology. If you believe in the pathology of dependency, or if you live in the pathology of dependency, and you believe you're a victim, and you're told you can't make it, you walk around thinking that politics is going to change your life as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things my parents told me was, nobody has the power to affect where you go in life.
Right.
You know, if you don't break the law.
Right.
But
well, I mean, ultimately it's you. You're the one.
Right. You can do, maybe not athletically, but you can do almost anything that you want to do with your brain.
Right.
Most people can. You don't know what the possibilities are. And fear keeps a lot of people from moving forward. But if you've got this natural curiosity and you come from a family that encourages you, you've got the natural curiosity, you've got the environment that you live in. I mean, the possibilities of what people can do are incredible, but I think the opposite is true too.
Yeah.
That you can be, you can be brainwashed that you shouldn't have a natural curiosity.
I mean,
you should just be a victim.
Yeah.
Virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Dependent on someone else, because I do think the pathology of dependency is sitting there thinking, if that guy's elected president, I'm going to have a better job next year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's okay to say the economy will be better for everyone, and that's okay, but to sit there and actually believe that a politician's going to change my individual circumstances or my ability to succeed in life is not so.
Well, and you know, I think I was watching Rick Beato, great follow on YouTube.
He is.
And he was on with his friend, another great follow on YouTube, Tim Pierce, who is a guitar player. He's a session guitar player. Played on the song Runaway before Richie Sambora was with Bon Jovi. He's played on with countless artists throughout the years. But they talked about this of, you know, again, work ethic, but also, you know, they're doing something they love. And then the question, all right, what about today? Because nobody's getting record deals. In that industry, nobody's getting record deals. But you can decide you're going to make it by starting a YouTube channel, right? Doing something on TikTok and getting, I have a family member, she didn't even realize. She was putting things on TikTok that interest her. You know, she learned how to make homemade soap. She learned cooking things, techniques, and all of a sudden, boom, she's monetizing. And the thing is that if you follow something through, if you want to, you know, if you're sitting around waiting for somebody to knock on your door and carry you there, it's not going to happen. It just isn't. And even in an industry or a world where you might say, well, gosh, it doesn't work that way anymore. Actually, it does. You've got so many guitarists on YouTube that are monetizing and have never been famous in the way that, guitar gods, as they call them, have been famous. The point being, you determine that. You're the one who determines you're going to put in the work and the effort. Here's the thing. Putting in that having that determination, how does that go away in people? There are some people that have it, some people that don't. But if it starts becoming generational, where, and I don't know, maybe we've hit a plateau, maybe this is something that we just didn't have the stats on before. But seemingly we have far too many people that are willing to sit there and wait for somebody to come to them. It was what's his name? Winters, the comedian, Jonathan Winters. I almost said Johnny Winters. Jonathan, I may have called him Johnny. Jonathan Winters. And there was this quote going around. I never saw him say it, so maybe it was a meme that somebody made up and attributed to him. If your ship doesn't come in, swim out to meet it. Yeah. Someone the other day, I saw a Milton Berle quote. Again, I have no idea if Milton Berle actually said it. They attributed it to him. If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door.
Well,
but
right.
You've got to have that mindset to begin with. And if there is opportunity everywhere and you have people laying down, how do you change that?
I'll tell you one thing I look at, the return to office. I saw somebody post yesterday, well, I've quit my job because I had to return to the office. Totally, completely unacceptable. Somebody in their 20s. You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
There's almost as if everything can't be comfortable for me at 25 years of age.
Right.
If I have to
my
expend
job
anything
needs to
that is
come to me.
Yeah. If my job doesn't come to me completely,
right.
If it's not totally within my comfort zone, then I don't want it. I've sort of been the opposite my entire life.
We were the opposite during COVID.
Yeah.
We fought management to stay in the studio.
I mean, in the general terms of, I always wanted a challenge. Whatever that challenge was, I wanted that, which means the job was going to be harder than was in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because I knew that would be the only way that I would grow. But I knew that at a young age, I figured that out.
Yeah. Right.
So I look at that, too, and think that's part of the pathology of dependency. My job must be handed to me and be exactly what I want. I cannot expel any more effort than I'm comfortable with. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Well, our show ends in 1 hour. After the show's done, our podcast is available. We record all 5 hours of the show. Our podcast, I almost said pidcast. Our podcast begins. So if you've only caught an hour or so of the show and you want to catch more, that's how you do it. And if for some reason you can't listen to one of our great radio stations overnight, we stream all 5 hours live on our Red Eye Radio app.
Yep. And thank you.
And
we appreciate you listening.
BOGO, buy one, get one free.
That's right. By the way, if you listen to our show backwards, it does not become liberal.
By the way, there is no buying. Everything is free.
That's right. Zero. Yeah. It's all free.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.